Today we're going to be talking about scaling without structure when growth creates chaos. Our hosts today are myself, John Boone, and Virginia Espino-Laboy. Hi, Virginia.
Hey, hello, everybody.
So you ready to dive deep into this topic?
Absolutely.
Great.
Let's go.
Well, in our previous episodes, we've talked about decision fatigue, becoming the bottleneck, and inconsistent revenue and cash flow stress. Today, we're exploring another challenge that many entrepreneurs experience as they grow: scaling without structure when growth creates chaos. Let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about growth.
Well, growth is absolutely a wonderful thing, and we all want it. This is why, we started this journey of entrepreneurship, and I love when we are able to reframe the problem, because we are going to work towards all the different things that will bring us to a solution. But definitely, whenever you have rapid growth, you are able to create chaos. Chaos will come as you grow very rapidly, but you do not have a structure in place to be able to get the most out of that growth.
Good. So that's reframing the problem, right?
Yeah.
Tell us what you've seen over the years in business.
Well, over the years, I have seen that many businesses grow faster than the leadership systems can support. So therefore, it's you're receiving this wonderful opportunity, and you see your business growing, and you're so excited, but then things start to break down for a reason, and we're going to get into that. So a very good thing can turn into a bad thing. I think we all have been able to see that.
When growth isn't planned for, we're not sure what the steps are to bring that growth to our business, even though we might be creating momentum, which is we think we're moving forward because there's activities going on. It's actually creating pressures not just for ourselves, but for our employees as well as for our clients. Change is something that needs to have some structure to it in order for it to be welcoming to your team.
Absolutely. And we all love, that is a magical word of momentum. How wonderful whenever things start just happening and growing and all the work that you have put in, you start to see how it pays. But it can this opportunity can quickly turn into great overwhelming process, overwhelming days in which and we're going to delineate some of the things that take place. So yes, even though momentum is absolutely great and wonderful, you want to make sure that you're able to channel it in the right way and continue being very effective in your business.
So growth without structure doesn't multiply results. It often multiplies problems.
Absolutely. And isn't that something? Sometimes we think, well, growth will take care of everything. But if you do not have, the proper support on it, then it will turn into something rapidly. The same way that it grows, the same way that this wonderful thing grows, your problems will grow also.
Right. So I guess the question we need to ask is, why do leaders find themselves scaling without structure? You talk about 4 key reasons that this happens. Can you tell us what those 4 reasons are, and then we'll dive deep into what they are?
Sure. I see that, and I have been able to observe, and from talking to different leaders when they go through this, number 1 is first, rapid success. With a business starts growing quickly, leaders focus on keeping up rather than building systems.
Okay, the question that we need to ask for our listeners is, so why do leaders find themselves scaling without structure? Now, Virginia, you talk about a few key reasons that this happens. I think there are 4.
These are the 4 key reasons. First, rapid success. Second, lack of planning. Over-reliance in effort. And 4th, unclear leadership layers. You just want to enjoy that growth, and you want to respond to it very quickly, but you must be able to develop the support for it.
So the second one you mentioned was a lack of planning. Leaders are reacting to growth instead of preparing for it.
Planning is, and I think previously in other segments, we have talked about sitting down and creating your path and thinking about your path and thinking about what systems are going to support it. So therefore, when leaders are reacting to growth rather than preparing for it, we are able to see all these different negative things happen in the business. So yes, creating a structure beforehand, knowing that, okay, once momentum hits, am I ready? Will I be ready? What are the things that need to be in place when this rapid growth comes?
So the third that you mentioned is an over-reliance on effort. And I know we can often put a lot of effort into something and then find out we've put it all into the wrong thing. So talk about, instead of building processes, leaders and teams just work harder.
Yes, and once again, we're entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs love the fact that they have been able to create this thing and work on this thing and bring it to fruition, all based on mainly on their passion, on their effort, on their vision, and the things that they see coming. And all that is absolutely wonderful, and it's very important to have this. But if that effort is not supported, and you cannot, once again, like we said, you cannot support it with a structure, you will end up working a lot harder. And the result of that long term is just not good.
Fourthly, you talk about unclear leadership layers. As the business grows, roles and responsibilities don't evolve at the same pace. And I've seen that where people have desk procedures, or they have a rhythm to their day that requires them to do certain things and work with certain people. And then things begin to change around them, and we haven't looked at how it's going to modify their current roles and responsibilities. So when you talk about unclear leadership layers, tell us a little bit what you had in mind.
Well, yeah, just think about when you evolve, when you move, and here you have this team that, is working right alongside with you, and they're looking at you for guidance. So therefore, all these things come up, all the different needs come up in a business, and you have to start tweaking and pivoting and making sure that everything is supported. So you must be able to act on what it is that needs to change and expand in order to be able to support all this growth that is coming your way.
So an important insight would be, what works at one level of growth will not sustain the next level.
Absolutely. You've said a mouthful there. It's very important.
Okay, so we're going to dive a little bit deeper, looking at the warning signs, and how can someone recognize that they're scaling without structure? What are the warning signs?
Wonderfully, you have warning signs. You have ways that if you're looking at your business, you're able to see where things start to not go the way that you want them to go. So one of them is, your team is constantly reacting instead of planning, and they're following the leader, because they see you doing that and they start doing the same things. Your human capital starts behaving the same way that you are. And what that brings, mistakes repeatedly, the same mistakes. And this could be extremely frustrating. And you could see processes that are inconsistent or undocumented. And I would say that if you don't document your processes, they will be inconsistent. Being able to document them is extremely important. And communication becomes confusing. It's the part of the chaos that will ensue whenever your communication, the way you're sending, the signals that you're sending are the wrong signals because you are reacting, and then your people start to react. So therefore, everyone starts getting confused, and leaders feel like they're always putting out fires. It's just not good.
Sure. So clear signs are acting instead of planning, making the same mistakes over and over again, processes that are inconsistent and they're undocumented, so folks can't go and see what it is that they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
If they're not sure. And confusing communication. You're not using the tools like email, documentation, training sessions, and things like that can help to bring a better communication and bring change about in a more positive way. Leaders putting out fires, busy firefighting, you don't have the time to do what you need to be doing.
Yeah. And I often say that if growth feels chaotic, your structure is trying to catch up. And you don't want that. You really want for your structure to kind of march along your growth.
We always talk about the fact that there is hidden costs to these pain points. And as we said before, we've talked about that there is a hidden cost to the pain points, and that's how you adjust and how you work when you encounter these pain points. So let's look at what the hidden cost is.
Well, it starts to create strain at every level of the organization. So leaders feel overwhelmed and stretched. Teams feel confused and unsupported. Productivity drops even though activity increases, and growth becomes harder to sustain. It's kind of like operational chaos that starts to take place.
Sure.
Right.
Feel overwhelmed and stretched, that means you don't have room for anything else.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Your creativity goes out the window.
If your team doesn't feel supported,
Exactly.
then chances are they are going to be doing activities that don't necessarily add to the challenge that you have before you, right?
You become inefficient, and efficiency grows.
Activity increases.
Yes.
But productivity drops.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Absolutely.
But we see it all the time.
Yes.
So growth becomes hard to sustain overall.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you call the deeper truth.
The deeper truth is when structure is missing, growth becomes exhausting instead of energizing, and you need that energy in your organization. So when this starts to happen, everyone starts to feel pretty exhausted.
Sure. So now let's talk about the leadership shift. So how can leaders begin to bring structure into their growth?
Well, I like to simplify this into what I call structure before scale approach, which basically is taking care of that will support your growth beforehand. So first, define processes. Identify what needs to be done consistently on a consistent basis. Second, document systems. Make processes clear and repeatable. I mean, clarity is extremely important, and in order for you to make these repeatable, they must be clear. Third, assign ownership. Ensure that responsibility, once again, is very clear. You assign ownership of the different positions that need to take place of all these processes. And fourth, review and refine. I mean, I heard this so much in my sales journey. The magic is in the follow-up. You must follow up everything that you establish. Continuously improve as the business grows, because structure is what allows growth to become sustainable.
So you say that you often remind leaders that structure doesn't limit growth, it supports it. Expound on that.
Yes, I know that the energy quotient when it comes to entrepreneurs is to just do, go, drive, keep moving. So sometimes it may feel that when you're sitting down, developing structure, taking the time to plan, taking the time to to give foundation to your vision, it feels like you're taking time away from moving, but it is really important. It does not limit your growth. On the contrary, it is important and pivotal because it supports your growth.
What is one question leaders can ask themselves this week?
I would encourage them to ask, where is my business relying on effort instead of structure? That question can reveal exactly where growth needs support.
Effort instead of structure. So you're putting a lot of effort in, but you have no idea what you're building.
Exactly.
Or at least maybe you have an idea, but possibly the people around you are building something different.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You must bring them along with you. Yeah.
That question can reveal exactly what growth needs to support.
Yes.
Join us next week when in episode 5 we talk about hiring and team frustration.